What if feeling fear is actually an indicator that you are about to have a breakthrough? What if feeling fear is something that happens when you are on the edge of stepping into the unknown? And what if feeling fear doesn't have to hold you back any longer, but it can actually propel you into a new reality so that you can experience more love, more abundance, and more synchronicity than ever before in your life? Now, for so long, fear held me back. 2017, I remember I was afraid of making YouTube videos. I was afraid of what other people would think of me. I was afraid not even of the people online that would necessarily find my videos, but I remember specifically being afraid of what my friends from high school were gonna think if I was talking about esoteric things on Instagram. I was afraid of what my family would think. I was afraid of failure and how embarrassing that was gonna be. I was afraid of putting myself out there, afraid of judgment. What if it all doesn't work out? I mean, all that fear was there. And for 2 years, I let that fear hold me back. On one hand, I knew I wanted to make videos. I knew I wanted to put ideas out there, but this fear was underneath the surface. Now, eventually what happened is I learned how to move through the fear. And one of the most important things you must learn to do is how to use fear and not let it hold you back. Now, there's this quote from Eckhart Tolle I want to share with you I find very powerful. And it is that if certainty is unacceptable to you, it turns into fear. If it is perfectly acceptable, it turns into aliveness, alertness, and creativity. Now, just these last couple days, let me be honest with you, these last 3 weeks to a month, I've been very busy. I was in LA for a week. I then went to Las Vegas for a week. I then went to Sedona for a week. And then I came back to Austin and then ran a live event here in Austin. That was 2 days, basically me on stage for 8 hours a day, 2 days in a row. After all of that travel, and during that travel, I was also going on podcasts. I was doing work. It was a very busy month for me that at the end of the month was a live event that I did here in Austin. Now, what's funny is what I realized is the fear, which is funny because it's like the funny thing is the more reps you put into anything, the more you expand your identity and the less fear is actually there. It's almost like you integrate the fear. So it was funny. I was getting ready to go onto these podcasts, a couple of them very big podcasts, as we were getting ready to record, 2 days before that. I would feel nerves. I'd feel like a fear, like nervousness. And I'm like, what was funny is I knew that I love doing podcasts, yet I'd feel nervous. Like, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm not in a flow state? What if, all these what ifs? You know what was funny is I would feel the fear and then I would go do the podcasts. And every single time I would do the podcasts, I would feel incredible. I loved it once I got there, but in my mind, there was all this fear of the unknown that was there. And if I would have let that held me back, I wouldn't have had that awesome podcast experience. So what was funny is even as every time I did this thing that I thought was fearful, or I'd have a little bit of fear around, I would then do it and then feel really relieved. Not just relieved because it's done, but I wouldn't have wanted to do anything else that day. So it was interesting. So I went on 2 podcasts when I was in Vegas, and then I realized that maybe the live event at the end of the month that I feel like I'm kind of, at that moment, I was feeling kind of burnt out because I was so busy. And there was this pressure, because I always had this pressure that I really want to over-deliver and have people that show up in my live events have a very powerful experience. So at the end of the month, I was like, could it be the same thing that the fear around getting ready to go do these things, I do them, and then I'm so relieved and I actually enjoy it? And I started to realize maybe this internal pressure is just internal pressure I'm putting on myself. So what's interesting though is I then did those podcasts, felt incredible, and then would still get a little bit of the nerves before the next podcast. Every time I do a podcast, I got more and more confident. I felt more and more comfortable. Which then, as I was preparing for this live event that just finished 2-3 days ago, what I realized is, could it be the same exact thing? That there's this pressure that I put on myself, but then I do it and I actually love the process of doing it. Now, here's what actually happened. I do the live event, and I always have this story, by the way, too, that anytime I do a live event, there's like nerves for the first 10 minutes of the very first talk, and then it all goes away. It's basically like until I tell my first story and get the crowd, all of us kind of interwoven into the same vibe, it feels a little bit ungrounded, but once you get there, it's all good. But what I realized is that the more I've gone on stage, I've done a live event in Sedona. I don't even know how many live events now. Austin, Sedona, LA, back in Austin. I've done multiple events in Costa Rica. The more I do them, the less fear is there because the more comfortable it becomes. Now, this is the same thing when I first started on YouTube. To first be making a video, I was like, what are people going to think of me? What are my friends and family going to think of me? This feels so unnatural, looking into a camera. And what I realized, and this is also a very liberating thing to understand as well, when it comes to other people, actually, I'll get to that in a second. What I realized, though, is the more you do anything, the more the fear, in a way, goes away because you expand your sense of identity. So think about that. What if your identity has a certain thing that's fearful, and the fearful is the container of that? So when you expand your sense of identity, there's fear there until it becomes normal for you. So every single time I've done a live event, I've gotten more and more natural. Like this last live event I did, I was like, this one story I normally tell, I'm normally sitting down. What if instead I walk around the whole entire time on stage? And I was much more dynamic. I was walking around. I was enjoying myself. I was able to kind of pick from different stories that maybe I wouldn't share. But the more I did it, I can literally, if I were to take it on camera and show you this event I did in Austin a year ago, then a Sedona event, then the LA event, and then this recent Austin event, you would see my energy become much more comfortable every time. So what's interesting, though, is that the more reps you put in, the more comfortable you get. Now, what happens is many times people feel held back from becoming this new version of themselves because of the fear. They think, I feel the fear, so I'm going to wait till the fear is gone. Now, as someone who has coached many, many people through this when it comes to, for sure, on going full-time with their purpose and other areas of their life that they want to break through, the fear is never going to go away until you have the courage to step into it. It's not that the fear goes away. You just learn how to work with it. You can let the fear actually guide you. You can let the fear be an indication that this is the thing you can go into and that there's beautiful fruits if you do go into it. Now, when it comes to fear of love, for example, you say, no, I want love. What if you actually, at a deep level, are fearing love because back in the day, when you were a kid, love meant pain, betrayal. There's a feeling that you maybe never felt good enough and you felt like you had to compete for a parent's love. So being with someone that could actually love you is actually fearful. You say, I want this, but do you really want it? This is where you have to be honest and have the courage to be vulnerable. Have the courage to open your heart. Have the courage to step into a new you, to step into the unknown, knowing that all magic happens in the unknown. For a long time, like I said back in 2017, I was waiting for the right time. I was waiting for the fear to go away. I was waiting for someone to tell me I was good enough. I was waiting for that to go away. But the thing is it never went away. So instead what I said is I'm going to use this fear. I'm going to use this fear to go in the direction of my purpose and of my passion. And I remember at one point what I did to get over fear is I was really afraid at a moment, not in a moment, but I was afraid of what my family thought. I was living with my dad at the time in 2017 when I wanted to go full-time on YouTube. And I was working my 9-to-5 job, and I would go into the backyard, and I'd go into where the pool was, which is where I filmed a lot of my old YouTube videos. And I remember what I would do is I would start the video, and I would talk like this because my dad was right inside the house on the other side of the door, and he was watching television, and I was worried he was going to hear me talk about these weird esoteric things. So one day what I did to get over that fear is I decided to go to the Las Vegas Strip. And I lived in Vegas. So I went to the Las Vegas Strip and I got a selfie stick and I walked around the Bellagio water show where that was, where there's a lot of people. And I would make a video talking about esoteric things with a whole bunch of people around me. And you want to know what I realized? Fear was mainly in my head. Not only that, no one else was really thinking about me. Everyone is in their own world. Everyone is thinking about themselves and how they relate or how they relate to everyone else around them. They're not, even if they are judging you, they're judging what you represent. So when I was walking around the Bellagio with that selfie stick, there was fear there, but then I realized, wait, no one's really thinking about me. Everyone's just doing their own thing. Then what happened though is had a mini breakthrough. I then went to the Caesars form shops, which is like I walked into this place where there's shopping, but then it was quiet. People could hear what I was talking about. And I thought maybe this is different because now people can hear me. They're going to judge me. They're going to be like, who are you? What are you doing? I walk around making a video about something I was talking about. You want to know what happened? Security kicked me out. I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. What happened was the same thing. Everyone is just thinking about themselves. Everyone's in their own world. And no one's thinking of me. No one's thinking of you. This live event that I just ran is funny because one of the moments when we get back from lunch, we'll do a little movement. And I don't identify as a dancer. I'm not some like expert ballroom dancer like person. But after lunch, we put on some music and we just move to get the energy moving. Because otherwise, people, the food doesn't die. It's like people just kind of feel tired. So we always do that after lunch. But it's funny because people that normally would feel fear around doing that, they do it and then they look so like alive. And then one thing I'll do as people are like moving around, I'll be like, no one's thinking of you. No one. Isn't it liberating to know no one is thinking of you? Everyone's thinking of themselves. And if they are thinking of you, they're thinking of what you represent to them. That's liberating. So fear, many times, is just something we're buying into because our old identity is trying to keep us safe. Our old identity is saying, no, that's not who you are. But the more reps you put in, the better you get. Now, the courage to you becoming more successful, the courage to you having more opportunities in your life, more synchronicities in your life, attracting the right people in your life is going to come from having the courage to put yourself out there and to step into fear anyways. The courage to do it anyways. It's not that you feel the fear and that stops you. It's that you feel the fear and you do it anyways. And then eventually it becomes normal. And then there's the fear. It dissipates more and more. But it comes from immersion. The fear will help you to then transform it into power, into courage. When you think of the scale of consciousness even, you think of shame, guilt, fear, anger, neutrality. There's all these like different energies, different emotions. Courage though, having the courage to feel the fear will help you transform the fear. And understand that the fear will always be there, even as you upgrade in different ways. Like my buddy Victor opened for me at this live event that I did. And he gave this awesome intro talk that was like introducing me and kind of like getting everyone warmed up. And he said that before he went on, he was feeling this energy inside his heart, this fear. And then he goes on stage and does an epic job. And he told people at the end that he was feeling that to help people, because we did a Q&A like a day later, and then people were asking about fear. They assume that like Victor and I and other people that have attained a certain level of success don't feel fear. We do. It's just that we feel the fear and we do it anyways because we know that the fear is an indicator that says that this thing is about to transform you. Fear is an indicator that is showing you you're about to branch out of your old identity. Fear does not have to be an indicator that says, stay here, stay in the fear. This is what's safe. Because many times what is quote unquote safe is just what is familiar. It is what is known. But what if it is familiar to be in a toxic relationship? You're going to feel fear in breaking up with someone that's toxic. What if there's fear around being vulnerable and opening your heart and meeting someone that could really that could really meet you at a deep level? Well, you may sabotage it because there's fear around having an open heart. And what if the betrayal that happened in childhood, or what if there's something bad happened when you were a kid? So it's assuming that that's going to happen now. It takes vulnerability and courage to dissipate the fear more and more. Do you see how fear is just trying to keep you familiar? It's trying to keep you in the known. And if you want to break through to more love, more abundance, and more of anything, the key is to step into the fear. Now, one of the things I will say, one of the ways I broke through fear is actually, I had this trauma response back in freshman year of high school. I was doing an English class assignment with 4 other people. We had an English class where we had to give in front of 40 people in the class. It was a pretty big class. We had to go to the front and present. And I didn't do any homework at all. I slacked. And I then go to the front to give this presentation, and I did not do my part at all. And I'm looking around at all of the people, and all of a sudden, I freeze. I could not remember the next thing I had to say. I was just like this. I don't even remember what happened after that, honestly. I think someone may have pulled me off in front of the room. I don't even know. But I remember afterwards, I felt so much shame. I felt so embarrassed. I just remembered them. I still remember them to this day, kind of like the deer in headlights look. I had the deer in headlights, but they were just kind of looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? And I felt like I let my teammates down because it affected our score or grade or whatever. In that moment, I felt a lot of fear. And what happened is, from that moment of fear, I made a choice. I said, I don't want that to ever happen again. Now, of course, the funny thing is, in order for that to never happen again, I had to step into it. So what I did is, the next year, I said, I'm going to overcome this fear of speaking, and I'm going to go into something called forensics debate in high school, which is basically like debate tournaments. It's a class where you learn how to public speak, and you do debates in front of other people, and you've got judges, and you're competing. I got into forensics debate, and I ended up falling in love with it. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have that initial fear experience. So isn't it funny that, by the way, let me point out, the biggest fear I've had of like this deer in headlights look where I choked on stage in front of in front of a classroom in front of a whole bunch of people, may be the actual planting of the seed that had me then go into forensics debate the next year to learn how to debate, to learn that I love it and that I love public speaking, where then I believed I wanted to be a lawyer, where then that's what I was going to college for and that's what I thought I wanted to do. But then eventually, now I'm on YouTube doing what I love. I run live events for a living. I speak on stage for sometimes 8 hours a day, 3 or 4 days in a row. And it's exhilarating. Yes, there's fear the first 20 minutes of every talk, but like I love doing it. It is so much fun when I get into a flow state. But the fear, if I were to let fear be the indicator, it would always hold me back because I feel the fear, oh, this is bad. No, the fear is good. The fear means you're about to shift. You're about to transform into a new version of you. So let fear, whatever it is in your life, be an indicator that you get to choose how you work through that. You can choose to have the courage to open your heart. You can have the courage and to choose to move through the fear and to do it anyways. But one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you at all is to simply start. Whatever it is that's been holding you back, the fear of what people think, the fear of success, the fear of failure, whatever it is. Isn't it funny, by the way, how some people have the fear of success, some people have the fear of failure. How can we have, it shows you how diverse the belief systems are and that humans are in general, that some people are afraid of fear and some people are afraid of failure and some people are afraid of both. Isn't that funny? Kind of sad, kind of funny. Depends on how you look at it. And it's like, I was at the live event and somebody was telling me that like they want to be successful. They have a desire for it, but they're afraid. When they got down to the core, they realized that they believed that success was going to leave their family and friends behind. And what I told this person is, what if you not sharing your gifts in the world, you playing small, to keep people in your life that you're afraid of letting go of, what if that is enabling the other people in your life to not really know the real you? Think about that. What if you being the real version of you, you're afraid people are going to leave you? What if, first off, they don't leave you? And second off, what if they do leave you because you become the most abundant version of you or the most bold version of you? What if that's actually a good thing and that's you making room for other people in your life that could really resonate with you at a deep level? What if it's their work to unconditionally love you? Because if they only love you if you're playing small, do they really love you? What if they get the opportunity to love the real you by you being the most bold version of you? And some people will go through a cycle with this, by the way. When I first got on YouTube, people were excited and rooting for me. Then I started to become successful. Certain friends and people were still excited for me. Certain people I could tell that triggered them. But imagine if I'm like, I shouldn't be successful because a couple of my friends feel small because they still work 9-to-5 jobs they hate. Do you see the difference there? It sounds silly, right? But that's how a lot of us think when we're starting to gain our true power. We may be afraid of losing people, or people also are afraid of what their parents are going to think. I know because I know my dad wanted me to go to school, be a lawyer, and I did the unconventional route. So the funny thing is, though, I would have been enabling him to not grow and to maybe expand his horizon or his view of me, or maybe to love me unconditionally if I were to play into that pattern. And many times people are trying to still play into their parents' desire and expectation for them. But what if they're actually enabling their parents to not come around to say, hey, I can unconditionally love my kid and accept them? And even if they don't, maybe your purpose in life is to remain in your own frame and to realize who you are, to know thyself. It's not to continue enabling other people in your life. It's not to continue to try to get other people to please them, to be exactly who you think they want you to be. So being afraid of losing like this all, by the way, we're afraid we're going to be alone. That's kind of, I guess, what that is. You're afraid of losing people. You're afraid you're going to be alone, but you're also afraid of the connections you already have. It's trying to control the unknown. Step into the unknown, become the most abundant version of you, and let the universe, God, let your higher self, whatever name you want to give it, bring to you the people that resonate with you at a deep level, or to bring to you the people that were at a certain level, maybe you help upgrade them. What if you could bring some of the people with you? It's not your thing to control, but what if you could? Like, what if that's a reality? But fear is just trying to keep you from being the most bold version of you. What if that's just an excuse to say, oh, you're afraid of losing people? Not to saying that you don't genuinely feel that, but what I'm saying is that's the ego's. I'm trying to help you understand there's the ego part of you that wants to survive, and then there's the larger badass part of you that wants to thrive. And if you let this hold you back, it will hold you back. But that may be just an excuse to keep you in the familial energy. They're very similar words. So one of the most empowering things I believe you can learn to do is to learn how to move through the fear, which means you feel it and you do it anyways. All the things I've accomplished in my life have come from feeling fear, having the courage to move through it. And every time I move through it, I just put in more reps and it becomes more familiar. It's funny, I realized when I was like a day or two when I was kind of stressed, like dealing with a whole bunch of stuff, family stuff, just a whole bunch of stuff, and I was getting ready to do this live event, I realized, like, you know what's funny is every time I record a video, there's no fear when I make videos. This is just, I've done this 1,800 plus times because there's that many YouTube videos. There's no fear. But when there's this speaking in front of people, and even though maybe, it's potential that I have YouTube videos that have 5 to 7 million views. So it could be that certain videos I make get more views than the live event, being at a live event with 50, 70 to 100 to 500 people. But yet, for some reason, this over here may seem more fearful, but really what it is I've just put less reps into that. I remember when in the documentary, I'm Not Your Guru on Tony Robbins, where he's like speaking at his live events, it's on Netflix. And someone is interviewing in the back and they say, do you get nervous before you go on stage? And he just laughs. He goes, ha ha. He just like laughed. He's like, no, I do not get nervous before I go on stage.
Do you get nervous? Is there stage fright?
Like there's no stage fright.
He's going on stage in front of 2, 5, 10,000 people. Why doesn't he get nervous? Is he superhuman? Or is it just that he's put in the reps? I'm reading this book by Dale Carnegie right now. I think it's by Dale Carnegie, but it's like, it's on, he wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People or something like that. And there's this book on like being a confident public speaker. You want to know what the number one thing is? Put in reps. Put in reps. That's it. It's like put in reps. The more you do, the better you get. Put in practice. And what if fear is just saying, I haven't done this a lot yet. I haven't done this a lot yet. I haven't done this yet. And you start doing it and then you get better and better at it. And then the fear kind of goes away because you expand your sense of identity. So understand that it doesn't have to hold you back. It may just be holding you back as an excuse to keep you in the familiar territory that you've been in. But you can break out of this old version of you and become this new empowered version of you at any moment by simply making the choice to step into the fear anyways. The fear is good. The fear, and you feel so good after that, by the way. You'll do it, you'll transform and realize that a lot of times the fear in your head is just something that you're making up. Like in one of these 21-day challenge things I do, we do this challenge sometimes where people go out and do kind of wacky, bizarre things in public. And one of the reasons is because we tell ourselves, I'm this kind of person. I would never go dance in the middle of a Home Depot. And I know this sounds silly, and sometimes people are like, I don't get it. What's the point? But then they do it, and they feel, they are fearful of doing it, and then they go and they'll put on like a song, for example, and they'll dance in the middle of the store. And then once they'll probably realize no one's thinking about them. Some people might look a little bit, but like, doesn't really matter. But also they realize that once they're actually doing it, it doesn't feel that bad. It was just the head and the anticipation before doing it that felt like it becomes like a whole mind thing. It becomes just like an attachment to the mind. So it's more so, and then they're doing it and they feel liberated, and afterwards they feel so alive because they've just broken out of an old part of themselves. Even when I used to do forensics debate, I would be nervous right before going into the classroom where we would do the debate, because we'd be a tournament, and then there'd be like judges in the back of the room. We're waiting for the judge. So I'm with my opponent. We're waiting for the judge to get to the specific classroom. They come. I then start speaking. But when you're waiting outside, that's the most nervous. You go into the room, the nerves kind of go away. Isn't that interesting? It's the anticipation of the future. When if you could instead accept, like the Eckhart Tolle quote, if it becomes perfectly acceptable to feel fear and almost an indicator you're about to grow, then it can turn into aliveness, alertness, and creativity. And think about even the energy of anxiety. What I realized leading up to that live event is at points I felt anxious, and at points I felt very excited. It's the same energy. One's just like judgment of like being filtered through a belief system that says, I don't know what's going to happen, so it's anxiety. And the other says, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I'm going to like being in that state, and it feels good. It's the same energy. So understand that fear many times can be anxiousness, or it could be excitedness, because you're stepping into the unknown. So let that fear drive you in a positive way. Now, I'm going to be doing workshops and meditations, guided meditations in my new community that is completely free. If you want to check it out, you can go and click the link below. But I'll be doing live workshops and meditations in there. And there's also a community in there of other high vibe people. And I'll be posting those workshops on YouTube, parts of them, clips of them. But if you want to be part of the live experience, it could be very magical. You can go ahead and click the link below to join that. And then also, if you want a meditation that will help you to really raise what is called your vibration and let go of the anxiousness, of move out of the fear and into the most empowered version of you. One of the most powerful meditations I have on my YouTube channel has millions of views and lots of comments from people that have transformed. Go ahead and check this video out right here.
This meditation will change your dominant vibration permanently. Your vibration is a combination of how you think, feel, and act, and it has been on autopilot. This meditation will help you to be in the vibration you prefer, which will then change